it's really interesting because Dr. Puff was just talking about how it's really important, not to blow up at your kids. And this timeout, applies to this microphone, applies to both kids. We start when when they're very young, but it also applies to you. And I want to talk to you about timeout for you right now, just for a second, because how many of you get upset from time to time? We all do, right? Yeah. How would it be if everybody in this world, when we started to get upset, took a time out to breathe, to just clear their mind? Would their interactions then with that next person be a little bit better? Would there be less fighting maybe? Be less arguing, a lot of less just knee-jerk reactions because we have time to process and think things through? So timeout is important for all of us. But one thing, we often think of timeout when we have little ones, and that is where it starts. Because how many of you have ever seen a little 2-year-old have a tantrum where they're screaming and kicking and whacking their head maybe, or just doing that? And you're like, oh my gosh, hopefully it doesn't happen in a grocery store or somewhere else, but it does sometimes. So you see that, but here's the thing. If you don't get that under control, that child grows up to be a teenager. How many of you have seen a tantrum from a teenager? How many of you guys have seen a tantrum from a teenager, either from yourself or somebody else? Yes. Oh, it's a whole lot worse when they're a teenager. Oh my goodness. So these are things that we want to kind of get a grasp on and get a hold on. So I'm going to first talk about it in regards to little ones when you have. So oftentimes, and I've worked with hundreds of families and even children with disabilities such as autism and Asperger's. And with children with autism, you see that a lot, where they have these meltdowns, they call them, where they just have these tantrums. And it gets really bad where they can hit themselves. But even other kids can do that too. And one of the things is, a lot of times we want them to stop. Well, every time we want them to stop. But sometimes what people do to get them to stop is give them candy. They give them what they want. Okay, stop crying. Here's the lollipop. Okay, I'll give you what you want. But what you did right there just reinforced that behavior. That's a tough one. Because when you are stressed out, you're overworked, you're exhausted, and you have a screaming, kicking 2-year-old or a screaming, kicking teenager, because that happens too, you just want them to stop. But if you give in, you've just reinforced that. So when I talk about timeout with a little one, let's start there, is really about when they start to have a meltdown, when they get upset or they do something wrong, they have to sit away from whatever they're doing. It's time to take a time out. And they're not going to like that. They're going to cry and they're going to scream and they're going to get really upset, especially at first. But what you're doing is you're taking them away from that reinforcing behavior. I encourage it for you guys too, though, when you're really upset about something. So let's say you have a little one, you can't expect a 2-year-old to sit for 10 minutes. That's not, you're going to have a real meltdown there, both yourself and the child. What we recommend is the number of minutes that your child is, how old that child is. So if the child's 2, it would be 2 minutes where they're going to sit by themselves. It can be in a chair, or it can be, maybe just on the floor in the corner, but you're basically removing them from whatever is going on. You can also do that with a teenager, because teenagers fight too, right? You guys have siblings and you get upset, you guys start fighting. I mean, realistically, when you're that upset and that angry, wouldn't it be better if you could just kind of like walk away and sit and just breathe for a second instead of your parents yelling at you and getting mad and saying like, da, da, whatever they might say or do? Unless maybe you guys don't have parents that ever yell. No? Okay. All right. Okay. So timeout is, and we talk about it in more length in our CD here, which we're giving out a free CD to every one of you that's here if you'd like to take it. It's the Raising Healthy Children and Teenagers. But starting that young is really important, but we can also implement it. But modeling is a huge thing, and this is one of the things that, Dr. Puff and I often talk about, and that he just mentioned a little bit, the modeling thing. If you get really upset and instead of slamming a door or screaming or, all these different things, there are cultural pieces here. I come from a Hispanic culture. I have a Cuban mother, and when she got upset, she would she would throw things sometimes, but slam doors, scream, yell, just all kinds of things. And I can remember being a teenager once and getting in a fight with her, and I'm screaming at her, and she's like, "Why are you screaming at me?" Mind you, I had to do a lot of work on myself before I stand here. But, and I remember literally saying to her, "I learned it from you," as she's screaming back at me. And then she went in her room and slammed the door back. Now, I had to do a lot of work on myself to get to the point where I'm not doing that, because my knee-jerk reaction, because my conditioning, the wagon wheel that, went before me, was to yell and scream and do those things. Is that healthy? It's not healthy. It really isn't a healthy thing to do. If you're screaming by yourself because you're frustrated or screaming into a pillow, that's okay. But when you're screaming at somebody else, is your message really getting across? How do you feel when somebody screams at you? Does that feel good? No. Do you guys like it when your parents yell at you? No. Yeah. Do you like yelling back at your parents, though? It doesn't feel good. I mean, maybe in the moment it does, but you feel bad or you get in trouble afterwards for it, right? It's not good. So these are things that we want to try and change. It's hard, but that timeout I was talking about, it's important. And one of the things that's important, too, is not to parent out of emotion. And that's one of the things that I know when she was introducing me, she talked about the family rules. I got this training in something called, it's the family rules. And basically what it is you set up a whole list of rules for the family. Just kind of like when you're driving, you know what the rules are. You know you can't make a right turn on a red light if the sign says no right turn on a red light. You know you have to wear your seatbelt. You know you can't drink and drive. You know there's consequences for those things and what they might be. Jail time, tickets, all those things. But a lot of time with parenting, what happens is you parent based on your energy level, based on your stress level. You know, if it was yesterday and you get in trouble, maybe your punishment is you don't get TV. But it's today and I'm stressed out and you're grounded for a month. And literally that happens. And that's not really fair. That's not fair for your kids. And then the backlash from your kids, that's not fair! You can't do that to me! And because they're really upset about that. And then there's this whole thing that goes from there. So one thing, and you can do this or you just, or not, but one thing, if stuff is really chaotic in the home or you find that, develop a set of rules for the house. I think it's important for us to know what we can and can't do. Kids like to test. They definitely like to test. But if you're consistent every time and you say, this is the way it is, consistency is huge across the board. Both being there for your kids, setting limits for your kids, it's really important. And if you're trying to extinguish a bad behavior, you have to be really consistent, especially if you have little ones that have these meltdowns or they want things, you have to be consistent. Because if it's only sometimes that, okay, you can't kick, and then today you're in trouble for it, but not tomorrow, or whatever the behavior is, it's going to be like, okay, well, he didn't see me today, or I'm going to do it today, and that's fine. You have to be consistent. It's very, very important. One thing that Dr. Puff has just mentioned was the positive reinforcement. We really like that. And when I say we, I mean everybody. We really like positive reinforcement. You guys like getting paid for going to work, don't you? Would it be better for you guys if you didn't go to work and then you got like something taken away? Would that be the better thing, or is it better to get paid for going to work? It's better to get paid to go to work. And what Dr. Puff was saying was so true. You know, a lot of times I hear parents say, well, you know, they should be doing this anyway. Why should I give them something positive for something they should be doing anyway, like getting good grades or making their bed or cleaning their room or doing the dishes or whatever. But it's amazing when you turn it and you say, okay, you get to watch TV, you get to use your phone. All of those things are privileges. I have worked with families where, you know, the family doesn't have a lot of money, but the child has all these games, you know, the best and latest of everything. And I hear the child talking to the parent with such disrespect, just stuff that I couldn't even, like, you're allowing this to happen? And then what happens after they leave? They go and buy the kid a video game because the kid's yelling at them because they want a video game. And that is not okay. You don't reinforce behavior like that. You're being intimidated to do those things. Reinforce positive behavior. Hey, you were really good today. We didn't get in a fight today, and that was awesome. What would you like to do? Do you want to go get some ice cream? Do you want to see a movie? Do you want time with your friends? All of those things that they have are privileges. The cable that they have, the TV that they watch, the movies that they watch, time with friends, internet, Facebook, whatever, you know, the latest, any of those things, their phones, all of the nice clothes, all of those things are privileges. They are privileges, meaning when you behave well, when you do well, you get those things. You get time to use those things. Does it make sense for a child or a teenager who's totally acting out to be able to have those privileges? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. What about you guys? Yes? No? No, it doesn't. And so positive reinforcement, of course, right? Yeah. Positive reinforcement is a really, really wonderful tool. And if we can start to kind of just switch it a little bit and say, okay, I want my child to clean his room, and he's not doing it. I've grounded him, I've, taken away things, and it's just not working. What does he like? Well, he likes to spend time with his friends, or he likes to get apps on his iPhone, or whatever the thing may be. And you can say, hey, I'll tell you what, if you keep your room clean, if you clean your room today, maybe you have to start with a day first and then move your way up sometimes, then you get what you would like, and we work towards those things. But positive works a whole lot better. Don't you like getting bonuses at work? Don't you like even just the verbal praise? That's positive reinforcement. And even just to tell your child, hey, I'm really proud of you. You did a really good job. That feels good. And once again, that also builds their self-esteem. Because a lot of times, just like we also have a book on couples, what happens after a while is we stop doing the positive, we stop praising, we stop saying how wonderful and amazing you are because we get bogged down and stressed out. And what do? You didn't do this, you did this, why didn't you do this? And those are things you need to watch for, because both in your relationship with your partner and your relationship with your kids, that matters. So try and be positive, try and change it, try and change the way you're kind of looking at that. And we don't have too much time left. I'm not sure what you would. Okay, so I'm gonna